It all began on a rainy afternoon, the kind of day that feels heavy with the weight of a storm, not just in the sky, but in the air between people. Alex had just finished an important business meeting in the heart of the city. His mind was racing with numbers, charts, and figures, but something within him felt empty, as though all his success had come at a cost he hadn't fully understood yet. His company was on the verge of signing one of the biggest deals of the year, and for most, this would have been cause for celebration. Yet, Alex felt a lingering void inside, something that no amount of wealth, status, or power seemed to fill. As he walked briskly toward his car, the rain pouring down around him, something made him stop. There, in the middle of the street, amidst the chaos of honking cars and people rushing by, was Mia. She was standing under a bus stop shelter, struggling to juggle an oversized canvas bag filled with art supplies while holding a cup of coffee that seemed on the verge of spilling. Her frustration was palpable, her hands shaking slightly as she tried to manage everything. She looked like a whirlwind of color and chaos, her curly dark hair plastered to her face by the rain, her bright clothes a sharp contrast to the gray world around her. Alex's eyes locked on her, and for a moment, the noise and chaos of the city faded into the background. It was as if time slowed down, and all he could see was this woman standing there, caught in a battle between her art and the rain. She wasn't like the other people he typically encountered in his high-powered, sleek business world. There was something raw and real about her, a kind of vulnerability paired with an undeniable strength. Without thinking, Alex moved toward her, offering his umbrella. "You look like you could use some help," he said, his deep voice cutting through the rain. Mia looked up surprised. She hadn't noticed him approaching, too wrapped up in her own frustration. For a moment, she hesitated, her eyes scanning his face, trying to decide if this was just another one of those sleek, polished businessmen who offered help with strings attached. But something in Alex's eyes softened her defenses. There was a sincerity there, a gentleness she hadn't expected. "Thanks," she said, her voice small, almost drowned out by the rain, as she gratefully accepted his offer. Together, they huddled under his umbrella, walking toward the nearest cafe. It wasn't much, a small, hole-in-the-wall place that smelled of freshly ground coffee beans and baked goods. But it was warm, and the rain felt distant once they were inside. They sat by the window, watching the storm continue outside, a quiet tension between them that neither fully understood. "So, what's your story?" Alex asked, genuinely curious as he sipped his coffee. His voice was calm, though his mind was racing with questions. Mia chuckled softly, her laugh light, but with a trace of bitterness. "My story? I'm just trying to survive," she replied, her fingers tracing the edge of her coffee cup. "I'm an artist trying to make it in a world that doesn't really care about art. I've been working on this project for weeks, and today was supposed to be the day I finally delivered it to a potential buyer. And, of course, it started pouring rain, and here I am soaked late and frustrated." There was something in the way she spoke, an honesty that struck Alex. It wasn't just about the rain or the delay. It was about something deeper. Mia's frustration wasn't just about her art supplies getting wet or missing her deadline. It was about the struggle of trying to live a life fueled by passion in a world driven by practicality and profit. Alex, who had spent years climbing the corporate ladder, achieving success by any means necessary, found himself intrigued by her worldview. "You know, I've always admired artists," Alex said, leaning forward slightly. "It's one thing to build a business, to deal with numbers and contracts, but to create something out of nothing? That's real magic." Mia smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "It doesn't always feel like magic. Most days, it feels like I'm just trying to keep my head above water, hoping that someone will see the value in what I create." The conversation flowed effortlessly from there. Mia talked about her love for painting, how she used art to express the things she couldn't put into words, the raw emotions, the chaos of life, the beauty hidden in the mundane. Alex listened intently, his usually analytical mind drawn into her world of colors and feelings. For the first time in a long while, he wasn't thinking about business deals or profit margins. He was simply present, captivated by this woman who seemed to live in a completely different universe than his own. As the hours passed, they discovered more about each other. Alex shared stories of his journey to success, the sacrifices he had made, and the emptiness that had begun to creep into his life despite his achievements. Mia listened, her gaze softening as she realized that underneath Alex's polished exterior was a man who was just as lost as she was. They were two people, caught in different storms but searching for the same thing: a connection, a sense of purpose, something real. When the rain finally stopped, they stood outside the cafe, the sky now clear and bright with the promise of a fresh start. Alex felt a pull toward Mia, something he hadn't felt in a long time. It wasn't just attraction, it was a sense of recognition, like meeting someone who saw the world in a way that made sense to you. "Can I see your art sometime?" Alex asked, almost hesitantly, as if afraid of breaking the fragile bond they had formed. Mia hesitated for a moment, her natural instinct to guard her work from criticism clashing with a strange sense of trust she felt toward him. She wasn't sure why, but she nodded. "Sure, but don't expect too much. It's just me. That's exactly what I want to see," Alex replied with a small smile. As they exchanged phone numbers and went their separate ways that evening, neither of them could shake the feeling that something significant had just begun. They had met in the chaos of a rainy afternoon, both caught in their own storms, but in each other, they had found a sense of calm, a connection that neither could fully explain. For Alex, meeting Mia was like stepping into a new world, one where feelings and passion took precedence over strategy and control. For Mia, Alex represented something she hadn't realized she was missing, a stability and strength that didn't stifle her, but instead encouraged her to explore her own potential. They were drawn to each other, not just by attraction, but by the possibility of finding something they had both been searching for, a love that transcended the chaos of their individual lives. But as the days turned into weeks, their relationship would soon be tested in ways neither of them could have anticipated. Because while their connection was undeniable, the question lingered: was love enough to bridge the gap between their worlds? Could two people, so different in their approach to life, build something lasting? Or were they destined to be another fleeting romance lost to the storms of their own making? Only time would tell. But for now, on that rainy day, as they walked away from each other with the taste of coffee and conversation lingering on their lips, the world felt full of promise, and their love story had only just begun. The first few months of their relationship were nothing short of a whirlwind. Alex and Mia were inseparable, caught up in the euphoria of their newfound connection. They explored the city together, discovering hidden corners, cozy cafes, and galleries that Mia adored. Every conversation between them seemed to peel away another layer of vulnerability, drawing them closer. It felt as though the world had conspired to bring them together, two souls destined to collide amidst the chaos of their lives. But like all things, the honeymoon phase couldn't last forever. Beneath the surface of their happiness, small cracks began to appear. It started with subtle differences, little things that both of them brushed aside at first. Mia's unpredictable schedule as an artist contrasted sharply with Alex's structured, demanding life in the corporate world. Where Alex thrived on order and precision, Mia found herself stifled by routine, often losing track of time when she was caught up in her creative process. At first, Alex found Mia's spontaneity charming. He admired how she could lose herself in her art for hours, creating entire worlds on canvas. But as their relationship progressed, he found it difficult to reconcile her free-spirited nature with his need for structure. He would plan romantic dinners or weekend getaways, only to be met with Mia's unintentional forgetfulness. She would get wrapped up in a project, promising to meet him at a certain time, only to show up hours late, her hands covered in paint and her mind still lost in her latest creation. "It's not that I don't care, Alex," Mia would say apologetically, her eyes filled with remorse. "I just get so caught up in what I'm doing. Time slips away, and I don't even realize it." Alex would nod, forcing a smile. "I get it, Mia. I really do. But sometimes, it feels like you're living in a different world than I am. I need you here with me." Those words, "I need you here," echoed in Mia's mind long after their conversations ended. She wanted to be there for Alex, truly, but the demands of her art were not something she could switch off at will. It wasn't just a hobby. It was her lifeblood, the way she made sense of the world. And while Alex said he understood, Mia could sense a growing frustration beneath his words, as though he was waiting for her to snap out of her artistic days and step into the more structured life he lived. On the other hand, Mia found herself grappling with Alex's increasing absence. As his business grew, so did the demands on his time. Meetings stretched late into the night, and his phone never stopped buzzing with emails, calls, and texts from colleagues and clients. Mia would often find herself sitting alone at the dinner table, staring at the candle she had lit in hopes of creating a romantic atmosphere, only to watch the flame flicker out before Alex made it home. When they were together, it was still magical. They laughed, shared stories, and held each other close, but those moments were becoming fewer and farther between. Alex's world seemed to be expanding, pulling him away from her, while Mia's world remained small, revolving around her studio and her art. She tried not to let it bother her. After all, Alex was ambitious, and she admired that about him. But there were nights when Mia lay awake in bed, staring at the empty space beside her, wondering if this was what their relationship would become. A series of stolen moments, overshadowed by the demands of their individual lives. The first real fight between them happened on a Friday evening, after Alex had promised to attend one of Mia's art exhibitions. It was a small gallery show, but it meant the world to her. She had been working tirelessly on her latest collection, pouring every ounce of her creativity and soul into each piece. The night was supposed to be a celebration of her work, a chance for Alex to see her in her element, surrounded by the art she loved so dearly. Mia had spent hours getting ready, carefully selecting a dress that made her feel both confident and elegant. She was nervous, excited, and hopeful that Alex would finally understand just how much her art meant to her. She had even arranged a private viewing for him before the exhibition officially opened, wanting to share that intimate moment with him. But as the minutes turned into hours, Mia's phone buzzed with a message she had grown all too familiar with. Running late. Meeting went longer than expected. I'll try to be there soon. Mia's heart sank. She stared at the message, her hands trembling as she fought back tears. She had wanted this night to be perfect, to show Alex a part of herself that she rarely shared with others. But now, standing alone in the gallery as guests began to arrive, she felt an overwhelming sense of disappointment. The night dragged on, and Alex never showed up. Mia smiled and made small talk with the attendees, her eyes constantly drifting toward the door, hoping to see Alex walk in. But he didn't. As the gallery began to empty, Mia found herself standing alone in front of one of her paintings, the one she had been most proud of, a vivid, abstract piece that captured the intensity of her emotions. It was bold, chaotic, and full of life, much like the love she had for Alex. When Mia finally made it home that night, Alex was waiting for her in the living room, still dressed in his suit, his tie loosened around his neck. He stood up as soon as she walked in, an apologetic look on his face. "Mia, I'm so sorry," he began, his voice soft. "The meeting ran late, and then there was traffic." "Don't," Mia interrupted, her voice trembling with anger and hurt. "Don't make excuses, Alex. You promised you would be there, and you weren't." I know, Alex said, running a hand through his hair in frustration. "But you know how my job is. I couldn't just leave in the middle of a major deal." Mia shook her head, her eyes brimming with tears. "It's not about the meeting, Alex. It's about the fact that you always choose work over me. I needed you tonight, and you weren't there. This was important to me." Alex sighed, his expression conflicted. "I'm trying, Mia. I really am. But you have to understand that my work is demanding. I can't always be there for every event." Mia's heart ached at his words. She felt like she was being unreasonable, but at the same time, she couldn't shake the feeling of being neglected. "I'm not asking you to be there for everything, Alex. I'm asking you to be there for the important things. This was important to me, and you didn't show up." The room was filled with a heavy silence as they stared at each other, the weight of their unspoken frustrations hanging in the air. Mia felt torn between her love for Alex and the growing sense of isolation she was experiencing. She wanted to believe that they could make it work, that their love was strong enough to overcome these challenges. But in that moment, standing in front of him, she realized that love alone might not be enough. Alex reached out to touch her arm, his expression softening. "Mia, I love you. You know that, right? I'm trying to balance everything, but it's not easy." "I know you love me," Mia whispered, her voice breaking. "But sometimes it feels like I'm not a priority in your life. I can't keep feeling like this." Alex's grip on her arm tightened slightly, as though he was afraid of losing her. "You are a priority. I don't know how to fix this." Mia pulled away, her heart heavy with the realization that she didn't know how to fix it either. They stood there, facing each other, both wanting to bridge the gap between them, but unsure of how to take the first step. It was as though they were standing on opposite sides of a widening chasm, each hoping the other would find a way to close the distance. In the days that followed, the tension between them grew. They still loved each other deeply, but the small cracks in their relationship had begun to widen. Mia found herself retreating into her art, using it as an escape from the loneliness she felt when Alex wasn't around. She painted late into the night, pouring her frustration and sadness onto the canvas, creating pieces that were raw and emotional, a reflection of the turmoil inside her. Alex, meanwhile, threw himself even deeper into his work. He wanted to provide for Mia, to build a future for them, but in doing so, he was unintentionally pushing her further away. He believed that success in his career would bring them happiness, but he failed to see that what Mia needed most wasn't financial security, it was emotional connection. The once vibrant and passionate relationship they had shared was slowly being consumed by the demands of their individual lives. They were two people in love, but love alone wasn't enough to bridge the growing divide between them. As the weeks passed, both Alex and Mia found themselves questioning the future of their relationship. They still had moments of joy and laughter, but those moments were becoming rare, overshadowed by the underlying tension that neither of them knew how to address. They were caught in a cycle of miscommunication, each feeling misunderstood and disconnected, yet neither willing to let go of the love they still felt for each other. In the back of Mia's mind, a question began to form, a question she wasn't ready to confront but couldn't ignore. Was love enough to sustain them? She didn't have the answer yet, but the first signs of trouble were becoming impossible to ignore. As autumn approached, the chill in the air mirrored the coolness that had settled between Alex and Mia. The once fiery passion that had sparked their relationship now felt distant, replaced by an unspoken tension that seemed to grow heavier with each passing day. What was once effortless had become strained, and though they both tried to hold on, the emotional distance between them grew wider with every missed conversation, every canceled plan. Mia's art had become her sanctuary, a place where she could escape the complicated mess of her relationship with Alex. She spent hours in her studio, painting late into the night, channeling her frustration, hurt, and confusion into her work. Her once bright, colorful pieces had taken on a darker tone, filled with jagged lines and muted hues. Each stroke of her brush felt like a release, a way to express the emotion she could no longer articulate to Alex. Mia's friends noticed the change in her, the way her laughter was less frequent, her once sparkling eyes now clouded with sadness. She still smiled, but it was a forced, hollow smile, one that didn't reach her eyes. Her friends tried to reach out, inviting her to coffee or to join them for a night out, but Mia always declined. She didn't want to face the questions she knew they would ask, didn't want to admit to herself that things with Alex weren't perfect anymore. Alex, on the other hand, found himself drowning in his work. He had always been driven, always ambitious, but now his job seemed like the only thing he could control. It was easier to lose himself in business meetings and late-night emails than to confront the growing rift between him and Mia. He told himself he was doing it for them, for their future. But deep down, he knew that something was slipping away, something precious and irreplaceable, and he didn't know how to stop it. Their arguments, which used to be rare and quickly resolved, were becoming more frequent. They bickered over the smallest things: who left the dishes in the sink, who forgot to lock the door, who didn't show up on time. Each argument left them both more exhausted, more defeated, until they eventually stopped arguing altogether. Silence replaced the bickering, and that silence was even more painful. One evening, Mia found herself sitting alone at the dinner table once again, staring at the empty chair across from her. She had cooked Alex's favorite meal, hoping that tonight would be different. She wanted to reconnect, to have just one night where they could talk like they used to, laugh like they used to. But as the minutes ticked by and the food grew cold, Mia realized that Alex wasn't coming home early, just as he hadn't for the past several weeks. She checked her phone, seeing a familiar message. Working late. Don't wait up. Mia's chest tightened as she stared at the words, her hand shaking slightly as she put the phone down. She had lost count of how many times Alex had sent that same message, and each time it cut a little deeper. She knew his work was important, but she couldn't help feeling like she was no longer a priority in his life. Mia stood up from the table, leaving the uneaten meal behind, and walked into her studio. Her hands itched to paint, to release the tangled emotions inside her. But as she stood in front of her canvas, she felt empty. The inspiration that had once flowed so freely now felt blocked, trapped beneath the weight of her sadness. She sat down on the floor, wrapping her arms around her knees, and for the first time in a long while, she let herself cry. Meanwhile, Alex was sitting in his office, staring blankly at his computer screen. He had been working on a proposal for hours, but his mind kept drifting back to Mia. He knew he was letting her down, that he wasn't being the partner she needed him to be, but he didn't know how to fix it. Every time he tried to talk to her, it felt like they were speaking different languages, unable to understand each other's needs. Alex sighed, rubbing his temples as he leaned back in his chair. He missed Mia. He missed the way they used to be, the laughter, the intimacy, the sense of connection that had once felt so effortless. Now, it felt like they were just going through the motions, living parallel lives that rarely intersected. He glanced at the time and realized how late it was. He should go home, but the thought of facing Mia and their strained relationship filled him with a sense of dread. Instead, Alex picked up his phone and texted her, telling her he would be working late. It was easier that way, easier to avoid the confrontation he knew was waiting for him at home. He promised himself that he would make it up to her, that he would find a way to fix things between them, but deep down, he wasn't sure if it was too late. Days turned into weeks, and the emotional distance between Alex and Mia continued to grow. They still said, "I love you," but the words felt hollow, like a habit they couldn't break. They went through the motions of their relationship, but the spark that had once made their love so special had dimmed. One night, after yet another long day at the office, Alex came home to find Mia sitting in the living room, staring out the window. The room was dimly lit, and for a moment, Alex thought she was asleep, but when he approached her, he saw the tear tracks on her cheeks. "Mia," he said softly, his voice filled with concern. "What's wrong?" Mia didn't turn to look at him. She kept her gaze fixed on the darkened sky outside, her voice barely above a whisper. "I don't know if I can do this anymore, Alex." Her words hit him like a punch to the gut. He sat down beside her, his heart racing. "What do you mean?" Mia finally turned to face him, her eyes filled with a mixture of sadness and exhaustion. "I mean us? This relationship. I don't know if I can keep pretending that everything's okay when it's not." Alex felt a lump form in his throat. He had known things were bad, but hearing her say it out loud made it feel real in a way he hadn't been ready to face. "Mia, I know things have been tough, but we can fix this. We just need to talk to figure out what's going wrong." Mia shook her head, her voice trembling with emotion. "We've been trying to fix it for months, Alex, and nothing's changed. You're always working, and when you're here, it's like you're not really here. I feel like I'm losing you, and I don't know how to stop it." Alex reached for her hand, desperate to hold on to her. "You're not losing me. I love you, Mia. I know I've been focused on work, but I'm doing it for us, for our future." Mia pulled her hand away, her eyes filled with tears. "I don't need you to build a future for us, Alex. I need you here, with me, in the present. I need to feel like I matter to you, like I'm more than just an afterthought." Her words cut deep, and Alex felt a wave of guilt wash over him. He had been so focused on his career, so determined to succeed, that he hadn't realized how much he had been neglecting Mia. He had taken her for granted, assuming that their love would be enough to carry them through, but now he was starting to see that love alone wasn't enough. "Mia, I'm sorry," Alex said, his voice thick with emotion. "I didn't mean to make you feel like you don't matter. You mean everything to me. I've just been so caught up in work, and I didn't realize how much it was affecting us." Mia wiped away a tear, her expression softening slightly. "I know you didn't mean to hurt me, Alex, but the truth is, I don't know if we can go on like this. I feel like we're drifting apart, and I'm scared that one day we'll wake up and realize that there's nothing left between us." Alex's heart clenched at the thought of losing her. He couldn't imagine his life without Mia, without her laughter, her creativity, her warmth. He knew he had made mistakes, but he wasn't ready to give up on their relationship. "We can fix this, Mia," Alex said, his voice filled with determination. "We just need to make more time for each other. I'll cut back on work. I'll be there for you more. I promise." Mia looked at him, her eyes searching his face for any sign of hope. She wanted to believe him, wanted to believe that they could turn things around, but the weight of their struggles felt overwhelming. "I don't know, Alex," she said quietly. "I don't know if it's that simple." They sat in silence for a long time, neither of them knowing what to say. The love they still felt for each other was undeniable, but so were the cracks in their relationship. They were standing on the edge of something fragile, something that could either break apart completely or be pieced back together, if they were willing to fight for it. But for the first time, Mia wasn't sure if love would be enough to save them. As winter rolled in, the biting cold outside seemed to seep into the walls of Alex and Mia's home. The holiday season, which had once filled them with warmth and excitement, now felt like just another thing to get through. Christmas lights twinkled outside their windows, but inside, their home was dim and lifeless. Even the tree they decorated together felt like an obligation. Each ornament they hung serving as a painful reminder of the memories they were no longer creating together. Mia had stopped trying to bridge the gap between them. She no longer waited for Alex to come home from work, and she had stopped sending him messages during the day asking how his meetings were going or when he'd be back. The few times she had tried to reach out, it felt like her words had fallen into a void. Alex's responses were short and distant, always followed by an apology and the same excuse. "I'm just really busy." She had heard it too many times to count, and each time, it chipped away at her hope. The woman who had once believed that love could conquer anything was now filled with doubt. She couldn't remember the last time they had really talked, the last time they had laughed together. Their relationship, once filled with shared dreams and passion, now felt like a hollow shell. Mia threw herself even deeper into her art, spending nearly every waking moment in her studio. Her paintings reflected her inner turmoil: stormy skies, broken bridges, empty roads stretching toward a horizon that never seemed to come into focus. The canvases were filled with emotion, yet even as she poured her heart into them, she couldn't escape the growing void in her life. One afternoon, while Mia was working on a particularly large painting, her phone buzzed on the nearby table. She glanced over at it, seeing Alex's name flash on the screen. Her heart clenched involuntarily, and for a moment, she considered not answering. But something in her told her that this time, she needed to pick up. "Hey," she said, her voice quieter than she had intended. "Mia," Alex replied. His voice sounded different, more strained than usual. "I've been thinking, can we talk tonight?" Mia's pulse quickened at his words. It had been so long since they had truly talked, and for a brief second, a flicker of hope sparked in her chest. Maybe Alex wanted to fix things. Maybe he had finally realized how far they had drifted apart. "Sure," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. "I'll be home." That night, Mia sat at the kitchen table, her mind racing with anticipation. She had no idea what Alex was going to say, but she knew that this conversation could change everything. She wanted to believe that they could work through their issues, that they could somehow find their way back to each other. But there was also a small voice in the back of her mind that whispered a darker truth. Their love might no longer be enough. The sound of the front door opening pulled Mia from her thoughts. She looked up as Alex walked into the kitchen, his face pale and his shoulders hunched as if he were carrying the weight of the world. He set his briefcase down by the door and hesitated before meeting her gaze. "Hey," he said softly, his voice heavy with something she couldn't quite place. "Hi," Mia replied, her heart pounding in her chest. She gestured to the seat across from her. "Do you want to sit?" Alex nodded and sat down, running a hand through his hair. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The silence between them felt oppressive, as if the air had grown thick with unspoken words. "I don't know where to start," Alex finally said, his voice cracking slightly. He looked down at his hands, unable to meet her eyes that Mia's stomach twisted in knots. "Just say whatever's on your mind," she encouraged, though her own voice was shaky. Alex sighed deeply, his shoulders slumping further. "I don't know how we got here, Mia. I feel like we've been slowly falling apart, and I've been too scared to admit it." His words hung in the air, heavy and full of the painful truth they had both been avoiding for months. Mia's throat tightened, and she swallowed hard before speaking. "I've felt it too," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "But I didn't know how to fix it. I've tried, Alex, but it feels like you're always somewhere else. I don't know how to reach you anymore." Alex closed his eyes, his jaw clenched as he tried to hold back the flood of emotions threatening to overwhelm him. "I know," he said, his voice thick with guilt. "I've been terrible. I thought if I just focused on work, if I worked hard enough, everything would fall into place. But I've been so caught up in my own world that I didn't see what I was doing to us." Mia felt tears prick at the corners of her eyes. "Do you still love me, Alex?" The question slipped out before she could stop it, and once it was out there, she couldn't take it back. Alex's eyes snapped open, and he looked at her with a mix of shock and anguish. "Of course I do," he said immediately. "I love you more than anything, Mia. But I'm scared that love might not be enough anymore." The words hit Mia like a punch to the gut, and she felt her breath catch in her throat. She had feared this moment, the moment when they both had to face the reality that love wasn't the magical solution they had once believed it to be. "So what do we do?" Mia asked, her voice trembling. "How do we fix this?" "I don't know," Alex admitted, his voice breaking. "I don't know if we can fix it. I'll try to make things better, but it feels like the harder I try, the further apart we get. I don't want to hurt you, Mia, but I also don't want to keep pretending that everything is okay when it's not." Tears spilled down Mia's cheeks, and she quickly wiped them away, though the pain in her chest only grew stronger. "So, what are you saying? That we should just give up?" Alex shook his head, his own eyes wet with unshed tears. "I don't want to give up, but I don't know how to keep going like this either. We're both miserable, and I don't know how to make it better." Mia felt like she was being torn in two. She loved Alex, and she knew he loved her, but their love had become tangled in a web of unspoken resentment, unmet expectations, and emotional distance. She had tried to hold on, to believe that love would be enough to see them through. But now, sitting here in the dimly lit kitchen, she realized that love alone might not be enough. "I don't want to lose you," Mia whispered, her voice breaking as more tears fell. "But I don't want to keep living like this either." Alex reached across the table and took her hand in his grip firm but gentle. "I don't want to lose you either," he said, his voice filled with raw emotion. "But maybe we need to take a step back. Maybe we need to figure out who we are outside of this relationship before we can fix what's broken between us." Mia stared at him, her heart aching at the thought of being apart from him, even if it was temporary. But she couldn't deny the truth in his words. They had both lost themselves in the process of trying to make their relationship work, and maybe the only way to find their way back to each other was to first find themselves. "So, what does that mean?" Mia asked, her voice barely audible. Alex hesitated before answering, his thumb gently stroking the back of her hand. "Maybe we should take a break," he said softly. "Not forever, but just for a little while. We need to figure out what we really want, what we really need, both as individuals and as a couple." The word break hung heavy in the air, and Mia felt her heart shatter at the thought. But deep down, she knew that they couldn't keep going the way they had been. Something had to change, and maybe this was the only way. Mia nodded slowly, tears streaming down her face as she squeezed Alex's hand. "Okay," she whispered, her voice breaking with emotion. "If that's what we need, then let's take a break." For a long time, they sat there in silence, their hands still intertwined. The love they had for each other was undeniable, but so was the weight of everything they had been through. It was a bittersweet moment, filled with both heartbreak and the faintest glimmer of hope. As they sat in the dimly lit kitchen, Mia and Alex both knew that this wasn't the end of their story, but it was a turning point, one that would either lead them back to each other or further apart. And in that moment, they could only hope that love, while not enough on its own, would guide them to the place they were meant to be. The next morning, Mia woke up to an unfamiliar stillness. She lay in bed for a long time, staring at the ceiling, her mind replaying the conversation with Alex from the night before. The word break echoed in her head like a haunting refrain, a reminder of the fragile state of their relationship. She knew that taking space was necessary, but the reality of it felt overwhelming, like a slow, agonizing unraveling of everything she had built her life around. Mia turned her head to the empty side of the bed where Alex used to sleep. His scent still lingered on the pillow, faint and familiar. She reached out to touch it, but quickly pulled her hand back, as if doing so would make the ache in her chest worse. The apartment was too quiet without him, too big, too empty. Every corner held memories of them together. Late-night talks in the kitchen, shared meals on the couch, mornings when they couldn't stop laughing over inside jokes. And now, there was nothing but silence. Alex had left early that morning, his suitcase packed with just enough clothes for a few weeks. They hadn't said much as he stood by the door, his hand on the handle, looking at her with a mixture of sadness and resignation. There were no final words, no dramatic goodbyes, just the quiet understanding that they both needed this time apart. "I'll call you," Alex had said, his voice soft and filled with unspoken emotions. Mia had nodded, biting her lip to stop herself from crying. "Okay." And then he was gone. For hours after he left, Mia wandered aimlessly around the apartment, unable to focus on anything. Her thoughts were a tangled mess of emotions, grief, fear, confusion, and a deep, aching sadness that wouldn't let her breathe. She didn't know what to do with herself now. Their relationship, which had once been her anchor, now felt like it had been severed, leaving her adrift in an ocean of uncertainty. Finally, Mia retreated to her art studio, hoping that painting might offer her some relief. But even there, surrounded by the colors and brushes that had always been her refuge, she couldn't escape the gnawing emptiness. She stood in front of the blank canvas, staring at it for what felt like hours, but the inspiration she usually felt was gone. Her hand trembled as she picked up the brush, but she couldn't bring herself to make a single stroke. Instead, Mia sank down onto the floor, her back against the wall, and let the tears come. She cried for everything she had lost, for the dreams they had shared, for the love that had once been so full of promise. She cried for the person she had become, the woman who had put so much of herself into a relationship that she had forgotten who she was without it. And most of all, she cried for the uncertainty of what would happen next. Across town, Alex sat in a hotel room, staring out the window at the city skyline. The room was small and impersonal, with beige walls and a generic painting above the bed. It was a far cry from the home he shared with Mia, a place that had once felt warm and inviting, but now felt like a battlefield of unresolved emotions. He hadn't wanted to leave, but deep down, he knew it was the right decision. They had reached a point where being together felt more painful than being apart. Every conversation turned into an argument. Every shared moment was filled with tension. They had become two strangers living under the same roof, and the space between them had grown too wide to ignore. Alex ran a hand through his hair, feeling the weight of the decision he had made. The idea of a break had seemed like a solution, a way to hit pause and figure things out. But now that he was sitting here, alone in a sterile hotel room, he wasn't so sure. The quiet was unnerving. He missed the sound of Mia's laugh, the way she would hum when she cooked dinner, the way her presence filled the space around him. But more than anything, he missed the way they used to be. He thought back to when they first met, how effortless it had all felt. They had fallen in love so quickly, so completely, that it had seemed impossible that anything could ever come between them. But over time, life had gotten in the way: work, stress, the pressures of their own expectations. They had both changed, and somewhere along the line, they had lost sight of each other. Alex reached for his phone, his thumb hovering over Mia's contact. He wanted to call her, to hear her voice, to tell her that they could fix this. But something stopped him. What would he say? That he was sorry? That he didn't know how to make things better? He set the phone back down, feeling more lost than ever. The days that followed were long and difficult for both Mia and Alex. They had agreed not to communicate too much during the break, giving each other the space to process their feelings. Mia spent most of her time in her studio, but the creative spark she had once relied on seemed to have vanished. She would sit in front of a blank canvas for hours, unable to paint, unable to express the emotions swirling inside her. She tried reaching out to friends, but even their company felt hollow. They would ask her how she was doing, and Mia would smile and tell them she was fine, but inside, she was crumbling. She didn't want to burden anyone with the weight of her pain. How could she explain the emptiness she felt, the sense that she was slowly unraveling? Her thoughts often drifted to Alex, wondering how he was doing, where his mind was, and whether he was thinking about her as much as she was thinking about him. She wanted to reach out, to hear his voice, but she held back, reminding herself that they had agreed to take space. The distance between them felt unbearable, but she knew that calling him too soon would only make things worse. Mia found herself questioning everything: her relationship, her art, her sense of self. She had always been someone who believed that love could overcome anything, but now she wasn't so sure. If love was supposed to be enough, why had they fallen apart? Why had they both drifted so far from each other that they couldn't find their way back? Meanwhile, Alex was going through his own internal battle. The hotel room, once a temporary refuge, had become a prison of sorts. The longer he stayed there, the more he felt like he was running away from his problems instead of facing them. He missed Mia deeply, but he also knew that going back too soon would only repeat the same cycle they had been stuck in for months. He spent hours walking through the city, trying to clear his head, but the familiar streets only reminded him of the life he had left behind. Everywhere he went, he saw couples holding hands, laughing, sharing moments that felt so far removed from his current reality. He couldn't help but wonder if he and Mia had ever looked that happy, if people had ever seen them as the couple who had it all together. In his solitude, Alex began to reflect on his role in the breakdown of their relationship. He had always prided himself on being driven, focused, and successful, but somewhere along the way, his ambition had come at the cost of his relationship. He had put work first, thinking that providing for Mia financially would make her happy, but he had neglected the emotional connection that had once been the foundation of their love. He remembered the nights he had come home late, exhausted from work, barely giving Mia more than a passing glance before collapsing into bed. He remembered the time she had tried to talk to him about her day, about her art, and he had brushed her off, too preoccupied with his own stress to give her the attention she deserved. And now, sitting alone in a hotel room, he realized how much he had taken her for granted. But what hurt the most was the realization that love, while strong, couldn't always fix everything. Love was not a cure-all for the deeper issues they had both been avoiding. They had both expected love to carry them through, to make up for the things they weren't saying, the needs they weren't addressing. But love alone wasn't enough to bridge the growing distance between them. Alex knew that if they had any chance of fixing their relationship, they would need to do more than just love each other. They would need to confront the things that had gone wrong, to communicate in ways they hadn't before. But the question remained, were they both willing to put in the effort? And even if they were, would it be enough? Weeks passed, and the distance between Mia and Alex grew both larger and more familiar. They had settled into their separate lives, but the ache of being apart never really went away. Mia had finally started painting again, though her work was darker, more abstract, filled with the pain and uncertainty she felt. Alex, on the other hand, had thrown himself into his work, using it as a distraction from the emotional turmoil he couldn't quite escape. But despite the distance, they both knew that the time for a decision was approaching. The break couldn't last forever. They had to decide whether they could rebuild what had been broken or if they were better off moving on without each other. One evening, after a long day of painting, Mia found herself staring at her phone. Her thumb hovered over Alex's contact, her heart racing as she debated whether to call him. She had spent weeks thinking, reflecting, trying to understand her own emotions. She had come to some hard truths, and now she needed to know if Alex had done the same. Before she could second-guess herself, she pressed call. Mia's heart raced as the phone rang, the sound echoing in the quiet of her studio. She had been waiting for this moment, yet now that it was here, anxiety coursed through her veins. The decision to reach out felt monumental. She had spent so long grappling with her emotions, and now she had finally mustered the courage to take this step. Would Alex answer? Would he be open to talking? Or had the distance between them grown too wide to bridge? The ringing stopped abruptly, and Mia held her breath as the call connected. Hello? Alex's voice came through, hesitant but unmistakably familiar. Mia, he continued, a hint of surprise in his tone. Is that you? Yeah, it's me, she replied, her voice soft yet shaky. She could hear the unmistakable rush of emotion behind his words, and it made her feel both comforted and terrified. A long pause stretched between them, filled with a weight of unsaid words and unresolved feelings. Mia could feel her pulse quickening, a mixture of relief and fear coursing through her. She took a deep breath, trying to steady herself. I wanted to talk, she finally said, the words tumbling out. I think we need to talk. Yeah, I agree, Alex said, his voice lower now, more serious. I've been waiting for you to call. I wasn't sure if you would. Mia felt a flicker of hope at his response. I didn't know if I should, she admitted, her heart heavy with the memories of their last conversation. But I've been thinking a lot about us, about everything that's happened. Me too, Alex replied, the sincerity in his voice palpable. I've spent so much time just reflecting. It's been hard, Mia. I know, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. It's been hard for me too. I just feel lost. Same here, Alex said, his voice breaking slightly. I keep thinking about the good times we had, how we used to be, and then I remember how we drifted apart, how I let work consume me. I don't want that for us anymore. Mia felt tears pricking at her eyes. Hearing Alex's honesty brought back a rush of memories, moments of laughter, late-night talks, and the love they had once shared. But the shadows of their recent struggles loomed over them like dark clouds, threatening to overshadow everything. I've been doing a lot of soul-searching, she confessed, her voice trembling. I realized I lost a part of myself along the way, too. I put so much into our relationship that I forgot to take care of myself, to nurture my own passions. And when I tried to talk to you about it, it felt like you were never really there to listen. I know I wasn't, Alex admitted, a deep sense of regret in his tone. I've been so wrapped up in my own world that I didn't see how my actions affected you. I didn't realize how much I was taking you for granted. I'm really sorry, Mia. His words resonated with her, stirring a mixture of sadness and understanding. They both had been lost in their own struggles, unable to see the pain they were causing each other. I just want to be able to share my life with you again, she said, wiping a tear from her cheek. But I know we can't just jump back into things. We need to figure out what went wrong first. Absolutely, Alex replied, his voice steady. I don't want to rush into anything either. We need to communicate better, be more honest about what we're feeling and what we need. They fell into a comfortable silence, each processing the weight of the conversation. Mia could hear the distant sounds of the city outside her window, a reminder of how life continued to move forward even as they grappled with their own uncertainties. Do you think we should meet? Mia asked, breaking the silence. In person, I mean? I think it might help to talk face to face. Yeah, I'd like that, Alex said, a hint of relief in his voice. I've missed seeing you, being with you. Where should we meet? Mia thought for a moment, her mind racing with possibilities. The park where they had shared countless picnics felt like a good choice, a place filled with memories of their happiest moments together. Let's meet at the park, she suggested. You know, where we used to go when we first started dating. That sounds perfect, Alex replied, a note of nostalgia in his voice. I'll see you there. Okay, Mia said, her heart fluttering with a mix of hope and apprehension. Let's meet tomorrow afternoon? Tomorrow it is, Alex agreed. I'll be there. As they hung up, Mia felt a strange sense of relief wash over her. The call had been a breakthrough, a chance to reclaim something they had both been desperately missing. She knew that the road ahead wouldn't be easy, but for the first time in a long while, she felt a glimmer of hope. The next day arrived with a bright blue sky and a crispness in the air that felt invigorating. Mia dressed carefully, wanting to strike a balance between looking put together yet comfortable. She chose a soft sweater and her favorite pair of jeans, wanting to feel like herself while also trying to impress Alex. As she walked to the park, she felt a mix of excitement and anxiety churning in her stomach. With every step, she thought about all the things they needed to discuss: their feelings, their needs, and the future of their relationship. It felt daunting, but she knew they couldn't shy away from these conversations any longer. When she arrived at the park, she spotted Alex sitting on a bench beneath the sprawling branches of a cherry blossom tree. The flowers were in full bloom, delicate pink petals fluttering down like confetti. Seeing him there, looking both familiar and distant, made her heart race. He was still the same man she had fallen in love with, but the distance between them had changed everything. As she approached, Alex looked up and met her gaze, a warm smile breaking across his face. He stood up, his body tense yet hopeful, and opened his arms as if inviting her into a safe space. Mia stepped forward, feeling an overwhelming urge to hug him tightly, to melt away the weeks of separation and pain. "Hey," he said softly, his voice laced with genuine warmth. "Hey," she replied, her heart fluttering as she took a seat next to him on the bench. They sat in silence for a moment, both of them taking in the surroundings, the laughter of children playing, the gentle rustle of leaves in the breeze, and the sweet scent of blossoms filling the air. It felt surreal to be here, in this place that held so much history for them. "I've missed this," Alex finally said, glancing at her. "Just being with you." "Me too," Mia admitted, her heart aching at the truth of his words. "I missed us." He nodded, his expression serious. "I know we have a lot to unpack, but I just want you to know that I'm committed to figuring this out. I want to fight for us." Mia felt a surge of emotion at his words, a mix of hope and fear swirling inside her. "I want that too, Alex, but we have to be honest with each other. We can't pretend everything is okay when it's not." "Agreed," he said, his gaze steady. "I want to hear everything you've been feeling. I want to understand how we got here." Mia took a deep breath, gathering her thoughts. "I felt lost, like I was trying to hold everything together while you were focused on work. I wanted to share my life with you, but I felt like I was just waiting for you to notice me again." Alex looked down, his jaw tightening. "I can't tell you how sorry I am for that. I got so caught up in my career that I didn't realize how it was affecting you. I thought I was doing the right thing by providing for us, but I see now that I neglected what really mattered: our connection, our communication." Mia nodded, tears welling in her eyes. "I felt like I was losing you, and it scared me. I wanted to be there for you, to support you, but I needed you to be there for me too. I realize that now," Alex replied, his voice thick with emotion. "And I hate that I made you feel that way. I've missed out on so much because I was too focused on work. I want to change that." As they talked, Mia felt a shift between them. They were beginning to peel back the layers of their relationship, confronting the truths they had avoided for so long. "I love you, Alex," she said, her voice trembling. "But I need to know that you're willing to prioritize our relationship, not just your career." "I promise, I will," he said, his eyes locking onto hers. "I want to be a better partner, a better listener. I want to make space for you in my life." Mia could see the sincerity in his eyes, and for the first time in months, she felt a spark of hope ignite within her. "Can we set some boundaries?" she asked, a note of determination in her voice. "I want us to be able to communicate openly about our needs. We can't keep pretending everything is fine when it's not." "Absolutely," Alex agreed. "Let's make a pact. We check in with each other regularly, no matter how busy we get. We have to make our relationship a priority." They continued to talk, each sharing their fears and dreams, their hopes for the future. With every word, they began to rebuild the connection that had been lost, slowly but surely creating a path back to each other. As the afternoon wore on, they walked through the park, hand in hand, feeling the warmth of the sun on their skin and the gentle breeze that carried the scent of blossoms. The tension that had once filled their hearts began to dissipate, replaced by a sense of camaraderie and understanding. "Do you remember the first time we came here?" Mia asked, a smile breaking through her earlier tears. Alex chuckled, the sound rich and warm. "Of course! You wore that awful green hat that I told you looked ridiculous, but you insisted it was your lucky charm." Mia laughed, a sound that felt both liberating and healing. "And you kept teasing me about it the whole day. I couldn't help it. But you were so cute, I just had to keep looking at you. It was impossible not to fall for you. See?" The days following their heartfelt conversation in the park felt like a delicate dance for Mia and Alex. Each interaction, each shared moment was an exercise in rebuilding the foundations of their relationship, a chance to prove to each other that love could indeed be enough if they were willing to invest in it fully. However, with the excitement of new beginnings came the inevitable challenges of addressing the ghosts of their past and the demands of their present lives. Mia awoke on a sunny Saturday morning, the light filtering through her curtains, casting soft patterns on her walls. She stretched, a sense of determination coursing through her. Today was the day they would take a significant step forward together. She had invited Alex over for brunch, a cozy gathering that she hoped would foster a warm atmosphere where they could continue to connect on deeper levels. It was also a chance for Mia to showcase her culinary skills, a passion that she had somewhat sidelined during the rocky months of their relationship. As she moved around the kitchen, the rich aroma of freshly brewed coffee filled the air. Mia whisked eggs in a bowl, preparing her famous omelet, filled with herbs and spices. She also sliced a loaf of artisanal bread, ready to toast it to perfection. While she worked, her mind wandered to the conversations they had shared lately. They had discussed everything from their dreams to their daily routines, slowly peeling back layers that had been neglected for too long. But beneath the excitement lurked a shadow of apprehension. Would this brunch be just a pleasant meal, or would it also become a moment of confrontation? As she set the table, Mia reflected on the unaddressed issues that still loomed between them, specifically the role of Alex's demanding job in their relationship. She finished setting the table with care, using her favorite dishes and vibrant flowers as a centerpiece. When the doorbell rang, her heart raced. She took a moment to compose herself, smoothing her hair before opening the door to reveal Alex, a bouquet of fresh daisies in hand, a warm smile lighting up his face. "Surprise," he said, stepping inside as she greeted him. The sight of him brought a rush of affection, a reminder of how far they had come since their last conversation. "Daisies, my favorite," Mia exclaimed, taking the flowers from him and inhaling their fresh scent. "You always know how to brighten my day. I figured a little sunshine was needed," he replied, shrugging modestly. "How can I help?" "Just relax for a bit while I finish up," Mia said, guiding him to the living room. She felt a rush of warmth seeing him in her space, as it symbolized their shared journey to rediscover each other. They chatted casually, discussing light topics like movies and music while she finished cooking. Alex complimented her on the scents wafting from the kitchen, making her heart swell with pride. As they sat down to brunch, the atmosphere felt light and cheerful. They shared laughs over the food, reminiscing about their past adventures and future dreams. Mia's heart danced with hope, feeling that this could be the turning point they had both longed for. But as the meal progressed, the conversation took a more serious turn. "So, how's work going for you?" Mia asked, trying to keep her tone light. She genuinely wanted to know, but also felt the weight of the topic pressing against her. Alex sighed, a flicker of tension appearing in his expression. "It's hectic as always. We're working on a major project, and it's consuming my life." His eyes shifted away, an almost guilty expression crossing his features. Mia's heart sank. "And how do you feel about that? I know how much it means to you, but is it worth it?" He paused, a thoughtful look on his face. I love my job, but it's draining. I've been realizing that I need to find a balance. I've been so consumed by deadlines that I've neglected the people in my life who matter, especially you. Mia felt a mixture of relief and anxiety at his admission. I appreciate you saying that, but it's not just about recognizing it. We need to make a plan to ensure it doesn't continue. You're right, Alex agreed, leaning forward, his intensity focused on her. What do you think we should do? How can I better manage my time and still be present for you? Mia felt a flicker of hope. Maybe we could set specific boundaries, like designating certain evenings for us? No work distractions allowed. That sounds good, he said, nodding. I want to make that commitment. I've been thinking a lot about what you said in the park, about prioritizing us. I need to remember that I can't pour from an empty cup. Exactly, she replied, feeling encouraged. And I think it will help us avoid those feelings of neglect we had before. As they continued to discuss their future, a sense of solidarity began to take shape. They were both committed to making their relationship a priority, a shared goal that filled the air with promise. After brunch, they decided to go for a walk in a nearby park, allowing the sunshine and fresh air to cleanse their spirits. They strolled hand in hand, feeling lighter with every step. The laughter of children playing and the vibrant colors of the flowers around them created a picturesque backdrop, reminiscent of their early days together. Mia, I've been meaning to ask you something, Alex said as they walked. Sure, what is it? He hesitated for a moment, then said, if I wanted to take some time off work, would you be okay with that? I've been thinking that maybe a little break could help me reset, you know? Mia's heart raced at his suggestion. You mean like a vacation? Yeah, something like that, he said, glancing at her. I think it could be good for both of us to step away from our routines and reconnect in a different environment. She smiled, envisioning a getaway filled with laughter and rediscovery. I'd love that. Where were you thinking? Maybe a weekend trip to the coast, he suggested. Just you and me, no distractions, just the ocean and each other. Mia felt excitement bubbling within her. That sounds perfect. I've always wanted to go back to that beach we used to visit when we first started dating. It could be like a reset for us. Alex grinned, clearly pleased with her enthusiasm. Then let's plan it. I'll talk to my boss about taking some time off. We need this, Mia. I need this. They spent the rest of their walk discussing potential plans for their getaway, imagining sunsets on the beach, romantic dinners, and long talks under the stars. The idea of stepping away from their everyday lives felt invigorating, a chance to nurture their connection away from the pressures of work and routine. However, the bliss of their conversation was interrupted when they encountered a familiar face. Sarah, one of Alex's colleagues, out for a jog. She waved enthusiastically, her presence instantly bringing attention back into the air. Hey Alex, she called, jogging over to them. Mia, it's great to see you both together. How's everything going? Mia forced a smile, trying to maintain her composure despite the discomfort that bloomed in her chest. Alex exchanged pleasantries with Sarah, his tone friendly but strained. Things are good, he replied, glancing at Mia, who could feel the weight of unspoken words hanging in the air. Just taking some time for ourselves today. Nice. You two make a cute couple, Sarah said, her tone light and teasing. Are you planning anything fun? Just a little getaway, Alex said, his voice brightening at the thought. We're planning to head to the coast soon. Oh, that sounds amazing, Sarah exclaimed, her enthusiasm palpable. I hope you have a wonderful time. You both deserve it. Mia watched as Alex engaged in casual conversation with Sarah, his demeanor shifting to a more professional and polished version of himself. A pang of jealousy shot through her, but she quickly reminded herself of their commitment to open communication. This was a test of their resolve, an opportunity for her to remain grounded in the trust they had been building. As Sarah excused herself and jogged away, Mia turned to Alex, her heart pounding. Are you okay? You seem a little off with her. He looked at her, his brow furrowing slightly. I'm fine. It's just, I don't want her to think there's anything more than friendship between us. Is there? Mia asked, her voice steady yet laced with vulnerability. Because if there is even the slightest hint of doubt, we need to address it. No, Mia, he said firmly, his eyes locking onto hers. There's nothing. You're the one I want, the one I've always wanted. I just don't want to give anyone the wrong idea. I know how work relationships can complicate things. Mia nodded, feeling a wave of relief wash over her. I just want to be sure we're both on the same page. I don't want anything to come between us again. I promise you, nothing will, Alex assured her, taking her hand in his. You're my priority, and I'll do whatever it takes to prove that to you. As they continued their walk, Mia felt a renewed sense of commitment between them, a shared determination to keep moving forward. They talked about their upcoming trip, their shared dreams and fears, and how they could both make an effort to prioritize their relationship. That evening, as they returned to Mia's apartment, she felt a surge of gratitude. They had faced the challenges of their past and emerged stronger. Their commitment to each other solidified. They were no longer just two people in a relationship. They were partners working toward a shared future. As they settled into the couch, curled up together, Mia felt a sense of peace enveloping her. They had a long road ahead, but for the first time in a while, she truly believed they could navigate it together. I love you, Mia, Alex murmured softly, wrapping his arms around her. I love you too, Alex, she replied, snuggling closer. And I'm excited for what's to come. In that moment, they both knew that while love alone might not always be enough, the commitment they had forged, the trust they were rebuilding, and the shared effort to nurture their bond would carry them through. Hope you enjoyed this story. Don't forget to like it and subscribe to our channel. Your participation is essential so that we can continue to bring you more incredible stories. Share it with your friends to help our channel grow. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video. Whatever challenges lay ahead. Together, they could face anything, hand in hand, heart to heart.